friends, this is Kelsey. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. I'm essentially booked on all platforms. And today I'm going to talk about the books that I read in August. And also I'm going to organize all of these things because it's a mess. And yeah, it is the Friday before Labor Day weekend. This will go up on Sunday. I worked at my parents' home today because my mom was having wine delivered and she was not home. And my dad was traveling, and so they wanted me to work from home to sign for their wine order. And then I got a free bottle of wine out of it as like payment. I vlogged out of work early for the weekend, which is just a fun little perk today. And yeah, we're gonna first tidy this up and then I will get started in my August reading wrap up. All right, mostly organized. That book of Mary Oliver's poetry right here, I've been reading forever. So I just read a few poems every once in a while. I feel like I constantly need to redo my bookshelves, but my TBR cart, the top cart is always like the books that I'm planning to read shortly. And then the second one is like books I really want to get to this year. And then I always forget about them. I need a better system. And then all of these are going to get put in a new home downstairs, they're all getting put downstairs on my big bookshelf. The rest of these are for me to talk about. I think I only have 2 physical copies of books this month that I have. I think I read mostly library books and NetGalley books, which is really, really good for me. So I'm kind of proud of that for the NetGalley part. I wish I had read more physical books from my shelf because that is one of my things. So we're going to start talking about the books I read in August. First, I want to talk about a book that I DNF'd. My book club was reading The Glass Hotel, and this is a group of women from my church, and this is by Emily St. John Mandel, and it's set in a counter world as Station 11, which I didn't love Station 11, but I did really like it. But there was a plot and a story and characters that I cared about. In The Glass Hotel, it's about a Ponzi scheme and the man who falls for the Ponzi scheme, the man who is prosecuted for the Ponzi scheme, his wife jumps into the ocean and goes missing. None of the characters I particularly cared for. I didn't like how the story jumped around. It just didn't work for me. And so finally, I had a pretty rough week in August for personal reasons, and just a bunch of stuff was hitting me that just kind of made this book the last thing I wanted to pick up. And then the more I thought about it, I was just it's not really jiving for me, so I'm just going to count it as a DNF. There's too many other books to read. Okay, so then not counting the DNF, I read 12 books in August. And 4 of them were NetGalley ARCs. 3 of them were library books. 2 were from Kindle Unlimited, and a few were from my shelf. So I had a pretty good month, and honestly, for the most part, it was a pretty month for reading. So the first book I read was Justin Cronin's The Ferryman, and I really like Justin Cronin. He wrote The Passage, which is the first book in a trilogy, and it's kind of a vampire meets The Stand book, and I just really liked it. I haven't read the other 2 books in the series, and I need to. They're just big books. He went to the University of Iowa Writers Workshop, so that's kind of in my neck of the woods, not really, but it's in Iowa. So I really like that. The Ferryman is about, basically, you think it's about something and then it's about something totally different, but I really, really liked it. It starts in this place called Prospera, and it's this utopian society. There's this island that people live on, and you have a monitor that checks your vitality, and when it drops below a certain level, you go to the nursery and are regenerated as a whole new person. Instead of dying, they just send you there and you get reincarnated. So it follows Proctor Bennett, and he is a ferryman. So his job is to get people onto that ferry to go to the nursery when their vitality drops. And so that's most of the book. And then the book takes a turn towards the end, and it is just you don't know what's happening. It was really fun. I read it for Gwen Kinsinger's Patreon, and we did a live video of it. My video was really crappy, and I felt bad because I couldn't really participate because my video wasn't working, but it was so good. If you've read The Last Quintista, I would say those comp each other really well. But I really did like The Ferryman. I gave it 4 stars, and it was a great way to start off the month. And then the next book that I read, I also gave this one 4 stars, was Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. And I loved it, but it was hyped in a way. It was intentional on the author's part, but I think if you are someone who likes romance and doesn't like literary fiction, you probably hated this book. And I think a lot of people went into this thinking that it was going to be like your typical romantic comedy. It was not. Curtis Sittenfeld is a literary fiction author. She's a fantastic writer. This book takes place on like an SNL type show, and the main character, Sally, she's a sketch writer, and she kind of just has a really skeptical sense of love and relationships. And her friend, one of the co-writers on the show, his name is Danny Horst, kind of like a Pete, whatever his name is, who dated Kim, kind of like that. And so she talks about how unattractive men get hot women, and the reverse wouldn't be true if it was like a woman with a hot man. And then enter Noah Brewster, this celebrity pop star, and basically the opposite, what she's saying does happen, and she has to like come to terms with it. Now, this is a COVID novel, so it's written in 3 very long chapters, and the first part is like them meeting each other on the SNL type show, and then COVID happens and they're talking through email, and then the third part is wonderful and they like interact post-COVID. I loved it so much. I just really like Curtis Sittenfeld, and she's such a wonderful writer, so it was really fun for me. It was a hit for me, but if you are thinking it's like a typical rom-com, it is not that. And then you guys saw my vlog for Liane Moriarty. I read Big Little Lies. This was my favorite one I've read by her. I have zero desire to pick up any more Liane Moriarty, but you can watch that video to kind of get my full thoughts on this if you would like. And then I did I gave that 4 stars too, by the way. 3 4 stars to start off my month. That's pretty fantastic. Then we go to a 3-star read. My book club read Beautiful Little Fools by Jillian Cantor. And this is a Great Gatsby retelling, but it basically follows 3 women up to the catalyst event in The Great Gatsby, and you figure out who's responsible for what and the stories and the reasonings behind it. It was really fun to discuss, but pretty middle of the road for like historical fiction for me personally. Okay, I just recorded a whole thing and it didn't record. So the next book I read was 5 stars. It was Beach Read, and it is my most favorite Emily Henry. This book just looks at 2 people who are really struggling with grief and like life come together, and it is a romance novel, but it deals really heavily with grief. So with romantic comedy, with this, and then the next book I'm going to be talking about, I read really hard-hitting romance this month. I really liked it. I'm a huge romance reader, but these just have depth in them that is not typical of a lot of romance. So this is Emily Henry's first adult romantic book, adult romance. And it was my Breaking Case of Emergencies book. It was a book I just kept not wanting to read because I wanted to wait for the perfect moment. And then like I alluded to, I had a really rough week this month with some personal stuff with family. And so this book just was like the perfect time for me. It just was perfect. I loved it so much. So then the next hard-hitting romance I read was called The Art of Scandal by Regina Black. And this comes out on August 1st. This came out on August 1st. It is September 1st today, guys. So on the night of her husband's 40th birthday, Rachel, the wife, gets a text message from her husband of a dick pic. And it feels weird to say dick pic on YouTube, okay? All right, so she thinks it's for her, and then she quickly realizes that it was not meant for her, and so their marriage kind of implodes. She issues an ultimatum because her husband's running for mayor. So like he kind of needs her buy-in right now because a divorce for this reason would look really tacky. So she's mad, understandably, and she agrees to work with him, but there's just some money he needs to give her and other stuff. And throughout all this, she meets Nate Vasquez, who's a younger man, and their family's paths just kind of interact a lot. They go into an affair. It just is a really good look at like romance, loving yourself and taking care of yourself for you. And also it talks about art and how the main character uses art as like a healing mechanism. And it's a very hard-hitting romance. It's very in-depth. It's really good on audio. I listened to it on audio because I had a copy from Libro, but this is also a NetGalley book. It's a very underrated romance that's not getting a lot of attention, but if you like harder hitting romance, I would recommend this one a lot. The cover does it a disservice, but I think if you liked like Kennedy Ryan's Is It Before You Let Me Go or something, I think you would like this too. It's that caliber of a romance. So I gave it 3 stars, mainly because there was just a character I didn't like, and there were some parts that drug, but overall, I just really thought it was excellent and well done. And then the next book I read was Lore Olympus Volume 4. This was a graphic novel. It's the retelling of Persephone and Hades. I've been reading them like so spaced out that I just feel like I'm not following it as much. And with graphic novels, they can't go as in-depth into like the story, right? There's so many characters in this now that I'm just kind of like, I forget who that person is. I forget the relationship they have with the main character. I don't really love the portrayal of Persephone. Like, she's this like dumb, naive child, but yet she's an adult. And I don't know, it's just not working for me anymore. So I don't think I will continue on with the series, but they are really easy to read. Like, you can read them in an hour. I gave it 3 stars. The art is beautiful. I love the art, but I think the story is just, I'm done with it. And then I read Reckless and Powerless by Elsie Silver. These are for the Chestnut Springs romance series. The 4th book is coming out in October, and the 5th book is coming out in October, and I'm so excited for it. But I read Jasper's book and Theo and Winter's book, and both were really great, but both were like 3 stars. Like, they're very steamy, but I really do care about the family. I'm super excited for the next book in the Chestnut Springs series. My kid and my husband are getting home, so I'm gonna film this really fast. So sorry. Then I read Big Little Spells, which I will be talking about in a video in October. This is by Hazel Beck. It's book 2 in the Witch Lore series, so stay tuned for a video I'm doing in October for that. My In Real Life book club, we read My Vertical Neighborhood. This is the same one for The Glass Hotel, but this is September's book, and it's a shorter book because we're meeting like pretty quickly. I think we meet on like the 12th. And this is about a woman who moves to a high-rise apartment complex in Toronto, and that's her neighborhood, and she's trying to live out Jesus's directive of loving your neighbor. And so she does that, and it's really beautiful. It's super short on audio. I love this book so much. Then finally, I read Banyan Moon by Tao Tai. This is for the Modern Mrs. Darcy book club. It's a generational saga of 3 women, the grandma, daughter, and daughter. Hi, Sam, 1 second. Can you go do that really fast? All right, so this is a generational saga about 3 women, and they're trying to figure out, matriarch passes away, and they learn some details about them. It was just really, really slow. Like a very, very slow novel, and I might just have to record this amidst this. There wasn't a lot of plot, but usually that doesn't bother me. I just really struggled with wanting to pick it up, but because it was a NetGalley book I needed to review, I reviewed it. It was the Modern Mrs. Darcy book club pick, so I need to go watch the book club chat. I did like the book because it really looks at relationships between family members and how you perceive one thing, but it really wasn't intended that way, or you think so highly of like your parents and stuff, and then something happens, and as you get older you realize like your parents really aren't perfect people, right? So it does that really well, and the writing is really good, but I just was not super intrigued by it. So it was 3 stars for me. All in all, 12 books. It was a pretty great month. I read 2 books by authors of color, and that's not a great set, so I need to do a better job with that. But like I said, I need to rush through this because they got home. But that was my August wrap up, and September's looking to be a great reading month, as evidenced by my TBR cart. But until the next video, bye everybody. I'll see you later.